Hello, everyone. Welcome back to another episode of Energy Unleashed podcast with Suzanne and Kim. Hello there, girl.
Oh my goodness. Hello there.
Right?
It's been
Uh,
I
been
feel
a
like I
week.
never see you and then I see you. It's so weird.
Thank God we do a podcast because we can see each other from across.
I know.
However, we're moving into cabin time, which is really good for us. So hopefully on these podcasts, you'll be seeing us from up north pretty soon here because
Yeah.
good old Minnesota is starting to thaw out, right?
Sure is. It's getting
Gosh.
it's getting pretty. things are
And
greening up.
and I think what's so interesting is, people talk about seasonal disorder, and I don't really think it's a thing, but I do think it's a thing.
It's a
Because,
thing.
I mean, gosh, the attitudes of people just changes when the sunshine comes out. It's just such a wonderful time of year in Minnesota, right?
Well, April's always really tough because we get a lot of odd weather. It can snow, rain, sleet, wind, all the things,
All in the same hour.
all in the same hour. And you're like,
Right.
what just happened? I
Right.
don't, it's
Yeah,
crazy.
yeah. Well,
So
I had some really interesting clients. I've been super busy lately, and people are really kind of restless about a lot of things. But I had an interesting one just the other day that I wanted to bring forward. And again, these are client stories of mine as an energy practitioner. I don't fill Kim in too much so that she can be like an organic response to all of this, much like hopefully our listeners are. Take what resonates every time, toss what doesn't. And so, yeah, we offer this because I think we learn from one another. So many people that are on this journey are so similar. And it's funny because this one really resonated to a majority of people that do spiritual work, client work. And I'm not dissing anybody, but are oftentimes in that kind of motherhood time of life, 30s, 40s, 50s, 60s, right in there. Lots of females. Not that I'm not getting more and more males every year, which is awesome.
Mhm.
But a lot of us go through this whole kind of like who the heck am I? And so to give you a little background on this one generically, she's a lovely woman that lost her husband years ago. She has two beautiful daughters that I'm aware of. Maybe she has more or not. I'm not sure that I also work with, and they're terribly talented. All of these women are extremely gifted, really beautiful, big-hearted women, really sensitives, really empaths, really cool people. And when she lost her husband years ago, she decided to move out west and kind of like get some space
Mhm.
and figure out who she is and what she was doing, etc. And I think that that was, quite a few years ago, and she was going through this healing process, etc., which a lot of people sometimes do when we lose somebody grand in our life, oftentimes like a partner or a child. So that was really cool. But now her oldest is pregnant with their first grandchild. And so she now has a new partner in her life, and her new partner, she is moving back to Minnesota to be more around the family, which I think is really awesome and cool.
Mhm.
However, she was like, I am so freaked out and I don't know what's freaking me out. I am so scared and I don't know what I'm so scared about. And I just kind of had to giggle because I totally know what she's scared about because I'm scanning her and watching her energy. And as she talks, it's so fun for me, even over video, much less in person, to watch people's fields because when they say things, their fields will change, And she was saying, things like, I don't know how I feel about coming back home. I mean, obviously, I'm super excited about a grandkid, but, I just don't know. I just don't know. Here's the deal. When we're scared to go to things and around things, oftentimes I want to use the word socially acceptable in quotes. It was socially acceptable for her to be out of a lot of the family stuff because she had a distance between her. She had a physical boundary between her, right?
Okay.
Now that physical boundary is not going to be there and she's going to be in proximity, and remember she's a huge empath as they all are, in physical proximity to a lot of her past and a lot of her future, much less the present, all at the same time, like boom. And what happens is we lose that socially acceptable distance boundary, so now holy moly, we're responsible to actually create a boundary.
That is so interesting. I didn't think of it that way. That
Yep.
because leaving and starting, you're kind of resetting yourself when you
Correct.
take that kind of major move. And then to think about coming back, especially the past has got to be a little hard because of losing her husband.
Yeah. And
And but
that's actually been quite a few years. I think she's pretty cool with that. But again, two arenas of socially
yeah,
acceptable. I'm going to leave to go heal.
yeah.
people are like, oh gosh, I guess I can honor that. I can give you some space and some time,
Mhm.
right?
Yep.
And now socially acceptable, like, holy crap, now I don't have that buffer zone. It's such an interesting concept, socially acceptable. We do this a lot. We have reasons for, I can't go to work because I'm sick.
Mhm.
I have to take 2 weeks off because I pulled a muscle. And we do these really interesting socially acceptable things. And now note, this is not always on a conscious basis. It's usually pushed from a subconscious.
Mhm.
But if you're honest with yourself and you really do work and are present, you can really start to admit, holy crap, I'm creating this.
Right. But the other side of this is the daughters have boundaries because she hasn't been there, right? Like
Right?
they have their own life and boundaries and between each other, the sisters, but also with the mom.
Yeah, and only one of them's here. The other one is somewhere else also.
Oh, okay.
But what
Okay.
she's coming back to, now let's even unleash this bigger because now what she's coming back to is a family. They're from Minnesota, as is her new partner, by the way. And so they have family structures. So now we have a family structure of my deceased husband, who I
Mhm.
probably kept in contact with, but I certainly haven't been, expected to come to Easter dinner. And so, because I'm, X amount away.
Mhm.
But now I not only have my family, my deceased husband's family, but now my new partner's family as well.
Yeah.
So we have all of these arenas that I'm going to be put back into. And I think what was so funny is she said, I am just so scared. And I'm like, what are you scared of? And she goes, I don't know what I'm scared of. So as it unraveled and as we kept unleashing everything and really pulling the feelings out, it's I don't know who I am. I don't know who I am anymore. I don't know what role I'm coming back to play. And I thought that was so interesting that humans think that we need to understand what role we're playing. And why the heck are we playing a role?
Right. Why would you like have to fit into something specifically? That's really interesting. But then you
But
look at how we live our lives and you
yep.
get
And think
how we
about
do
her.
this.
She's been off on her own, readjusting. I leave myself in the mother mode, right? So now I'm a mother, I'm a mother, I'm a mother. My daughter needs me, I'm coming back, and now I'm a mother, but am I a mother? And I'm not a mother anymore because now my daughter's a mother, and it gets really, really convoluted. It's so interesting. And she says, even in my new partner's family, what role am I? What role am I? And I'm like, you're a girlfriend or you're a partner. Why does there have to be a designated role?
Yeah, right.
I write about this in the Confident Empath book in that what's your story?
Mm.
And when we do that exercise, when I teach that class for a weekend or whatever, like when we have a workshop on it, it's such an interesting part of the training when we talk about what's your story. And oftentimes I'll do this in workshops. Grab a person you don't know, tell them about your story. And what do we do? What would be your, if you didn't know, let's pretend you don't know because you've done this, but you got to fake it a
I can
little.
tell you exactly what I did in your class with this
Okay.
exercise.
Yeah. What's your first two sentences?
Well, I used to be working in corporate as a vice
Yep.
president of blah 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 blah, managing these kinds of people, and I am a mother of three children, adult children. It was just going down the checklist of da da da
Right?
da da da, right? It was, and then I sat there and I thought about what I said. I'm like, that isn't me anymore. I mean, that was years ago that I was doing the corporate stuff. Of course, I love being a mother,
Yeah.
but I didn't have anything about me personally or
Right.
spiritually, right? It was really about everything outside of me
And
that I,
everything I do.
yes, doing for sure.
It is such an interesting exercise. I love doing that with groups because it is so automatic that it's everything I do. On the flip side, I've done that same exact exercise on the heels of a different meditative kind of moment, a practice of, wow, where am I? What are my belief systems? What am I really looking at in life? What is really, important to me right now, et cetera, et cetera. And then we do that, share the story, and every time it changes because then they meet a stranger and they say, well, I'm really evolving into finding more spiritual thing. I mean, the whole narration comes out completely different.
Yeah, totally different.
Yeah.
It was such a fun exercise to do. Well, it wasn't fun in that you really had to look at yourself
Yeah.
and be truthful with yourself about what is this? Like, why do I keep regurgitating the same story because it validates me? No, not anymore,
Right?
you know? Yeah.
And God forbid if we share something with a stranger too that says, I'm at this midpoint in my life where I'm really struggling with my identity. I'm doing my best to change my physical body. I'm watching myself get into the aging process and I'm terrified. I mean, these are things where people are just like, I don't know if I want to hear that because half the time it's a mirror like, shit, that's what's happening to me, right?
Yeah.
I'm
Yeah.
scared
And
of
I don't want
that
to
stuff.
acknowledge it. I'm in denial. So
Yeah,
don't ask
I
me
don't
about
want to hear
that.
that. Blah, 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 right? So we are so interesting that we don't want to go too deep with any of that stuff either because it's scary.
Mhm.
It's just such an interesting thing when we say things like, I don't know my role. I don't know who I am.
Right. Right.
It's
Uh,
fascinating.
it is, it is. I mean, and I think that, I mean, look at my life and I hit these points. It's not just one time in your life that you're saying, who am I?
No.
It's not just two times. It's like you hit points in your growth and things change and you're like, wait, this isn't the same old thing.
Hmm.
Or the things that I was doing are not necessarily working for me anymore. I've
Right.
gone beyond this. So now who am I and what am I doing going forward? Like what
Right.
am I going forward? I hit it quite often as I
And
grow.
why do you have to know? That's what cracks me up. Like, why
No,
do you have to know who I am going forward? Because can't that change tomorrow?
absolutely. It
Right?
changes frequently. That's what I guess for me, I don't necessarily need to know what it is anymore. I used to. It's more about acknowledging that things have changed and I need to change things up. Like habits, thoughts, there's things that just are not working for me anymore.
Well, hopefully you're at the frequency where you get to change them up because you're owning it more. Whereas
Yeah.
in the younger days, you had to, need to, should, all that crap. I think the older that I move through this process, I'm like, no, I'm massively choosing this now. So
Yeah.
this is my responsibility now. This is my job. One of the things that I talked with her about, which I think was really enlightening for her, is she said, but my role, I'm a mother. I'm a mother. And there's so many people that do this. I have so many friends and family even that are like, that's my role. I'm a mother. And it's so interesting. I think I came in such an odd body in this incarnation because I remember being really proud of being a mother and I love being a mother, but I knew it was just borrowed time. Like it was just like all the time I knew my kids were kind of borrowed. And I was telling her a story, when my kids went off to college, I never was like, oh, I really miss my kids. I'm like, see ya, because I practiced that a lot in my head that it was time for you to go so that I actually have some time to figure out my things, blah, blah. And I was telling her that I had phone calls from my kids' friends' moms that would say, oh my God, aren't you just so sad so and so's gone? I'm like, no. And I would sit there and think, man, I'm really either broken or I've got something figured out here because if you are that shattered, then you're still in that mother role that you're kind
Yeah.
of like not letting that child evolve into something in adulthood, et cetera, and you're really missing out on who and what you are. At the very same time with this client, I said, when you return, especially when this is your first grandchild and your oldest kid's baby, I think it's her oldest, I'm not sure. If this is your first shot at watching your child move in the trilogy of change from maiden to mother to crone. This is the cycles of life. Maiden is that young, vibrant, I'm that child. It's crazy and wonderful. Motherhood, oh, stable, and I'm here for everybody except myself. And then we move into the wisdom of crone. I said, if your child is moving from maiden into mother, you better scoot your ass from mother into crone. Because if you don't let your daughter be the mother, that's in her sandbox. You got to get out of the way. You can help, but don't be the mother.
That makes
And
total sense. Yeah.
yeah,
Right.
this is a challenge for new moms because there's a Facebook thing floating around that my own daughter-in-law jumped on. That was one of those things where you cut and paste it and then you add in crap, those things. And it's like, honor the fact that I'm a new mom. And I read it and it was so funny. I'm a new mom. Don't tell me how to do things. I'm a new mom. Understand that I'm tired. I'm a new mom. Understand if I say no to an invitation, it's not because it's about you, it's about me needing some space or whatever. And it was such a facet. She was over for Easter and I'm like, I said, sweetie, you kicked ass on being a new mom. I said, I didn't even like entertain that silly Facebook post because you're killing it. And she's like, I really appreciate you saying that. And I'm like, yeah, but I don't even need to be in there. You're doing it. You're doing
Yeah.
it, you know?
Yeah. Yeah. That is so cool, actually. Because
Yeah.
you don't, I mean, when you're a new mom too, it's difficult because you are, lack of sleep, you're, not eating right, you're, all the things, the emotions, the hormones, all of it together. And it is, you're working so hard bonding with your child and learning
Mhm.
what does that cry mean? What is that? And you need that time to do that. So it
And
makes
who the
total
heck wants
sense.
their mom in that sandbox? Who wants their sister in there? They're even their best friend in that sandbox. Let them figure it out themselves. Be there for a cheerleader or pick up the baby once in a while so they can get some sleep. But I mean, it's not about your sandbox anymore. When we say, who am I and what am I right now? That Maiden-Mother-Crone is a really awesome trinity to look at because we are evolving. And it's funny because I had another client the very same day who was male. And I said the same thing to him. I said, you're in the crone phase. Even though you're male doesn't mean that
Mhm.
that trinity of the triple goddess doesn't count. You're in that wisdom stage. You're in that stage where you are holding wisdom and you can pass along wisdom, but you're not in the mother stage. Get out of the do,
Yeah, right.
right?
Oh my goodness. So this is she um moving back. I mean, it is like well, because my son and daughter-in-law are having babies and that's
Yay, that's the
gonna be
first time you said
so
that.
yeah, so different for us because it's our first grandchildren too. And
Yeah.
I'm thinking about this and I'm like, there's already discussion on it because they live in between
Yep.
both families, like significantly. Like there's nobody else in town with them.
Mileage. Yeah.
And so they're trying to figure that out. And I think it's really interesting to watch my daughter-in-law try and figure out what that is going to look like.
Right.
With that, though, is coming a lot of worry, I mean, she's been really sick and, it just feels difficult and hard.
Hmm.
And I think some of that is perspective and worry that is bringing some of that on. But anyway, from my perspective, though, I'm really giving her space to figure that out.
Right.
Because who wants to hear, hey, if you think about it a little differently?
Do it this way. We fed our kids, we were doing bottles until they were 9 months old. I threw my kid a cheeseburger at 4.5 months. I thought my mom was going to die. I mean, it was like, no, we don't have to do it the way you did it, right? Yeah,
No,
give them space.
yes, it is for them to figure it out and, come up with whatever is going to make them comfortable. But we're here to help if they need it. Like
Sure.
if they ask for assistance and whatever, or talk through something, whatever, we're here for that.
And that
Um,
right there, what you said, Kim, is what I want to point out here is the evolution of you moving from the mother to the crone. Because when
mhm,
I'm here to help, I'm here to, share wisdom. I'm here to hold space for you. I'm here to physically be there emotionally, mentally if I need to. But it's more so about it's a different layer and it's a different frequency for you as well.
yeah,
And that's when we start to own again, oh crap, that's who I am now. That is who I am now. I get to evolve too. And if we're both smashing in that mother space, it's just like, no, I'm not owning the fact that I mothered my children, that I raised my kid, push
yeah,
them out of the nest, I get to fly. So this is when we start to own the fact that I also have a self-responsibility. Maybe it's time to really look at my body. Maybe it's time to really look at my hobbies if I don't have any, my creativity, my partnerships, my relationships. All of these things are self-responsibilities that we can brush to the side when we're so busy being a mom, right?
right. Oh yeah. Yeah, no, all of those things have gone through my head of, wait, I want to be able to like hold these babies for long periods of time potentially or whatever. I got to get my body in a place to do
Yeah.
this. I've got to get my
Yep. Keep
heart
up.
in a place to do this, all of the things. But yeah.
And we had a family gathering obviously for Easter, and some of the my nephew's wives came over, and I asked one of them, hey, how you been? I haven't seen you in a long time. And she has two young ones under two, and no, two under 4, 5, something like that. And she said, "Oh, all I am is just a mom." And I thought, okay, that's,
That's the
you
most
know,
important job in the world. Come
yeah,
on.
and exhausted though, the way that she
Yeah.
said it. And I'm like, I get that, but also your responsibility, in my opinion, and again, take what resonates, you can turn this off. That's really limiting yourself to just being a mom. You, in my opinion, are still a human being. You are still on this planet doing things for you. You are still responsible to your soul contract, your body, your experience, your co-creation, your connection to this earth. You're responsible for a heck of a lot more than those two kids.
Mhm.
And in terms of soul energy, filling energy, vibrancy, creativity, force of life itself, etc. When we let everything identify us so much because of a role that we're playing, that's when we have those conversations back to the workshop of empath. Oh, I'm this, I have 4 kids, I do this, I'm at the, then I'm a doing machine.
Right.
It's our
Right.
own fault. We
And
become
you're
that.
on autopilot when you're doing that. You're not even enjoying or, feeling any of the good emotional things that come with the joy and happiness and, those special moments. You miss
Right.
it because you're on autopilot.
And yeah, presence, presence,
Yep.
presence, presence, right?
Hmm.
So yeah, I think it's just super interesting. And then lastly, before we round down out of this, it was interesting too to hear her be so nervous to go into a new family dynamic of the partner that she hasn't really met before.
Mm.
And, when we're 50, 60 years old, we should be able to probably be okay with just what if they don't like me? And I'm like, oh my God, you just reverted back to, third grade and or 13 years old or middle school when I'm ugly. I mean, we all can pull those old triggers out. But again, it's our responsibility to stay with the fact of this is silly, this is a trigger, this is a mind screw. The reality is you can go into that whole situation with curiosity. And I said, don't you want to have a curious experience of the energies of all those different people? And kind
Mhm.
of just be in your own space of being the observer and really watching. So don't worry about fitting in. You decide how you fit in. You decide how you fit in.
Yeah, I to put so much energy before you even meet them.
Yep.
It doesn't make any sense because you don't know anything really. Like it
But it's
doesn't.
typical. It's,
Yeah,
in her
totally.
defense, it's totally
Yeah.
typical for a human to be scared of that. I mean, I've watched my own kids do it, go to meet the boyfriend. I mean, God, that's like meeting the family. And I
Right.
think it's so funny because our assumptions are usually wrong. I
Yes,
assume they won't like me. I assume I'm not good enough. I assume, that's why that old adage is it makes an ass out of you and me because it's silly to even waste that energy.
it is. It
So,
is. I even through time, just watching kind of my relationship with my in-laws, I had these things in my head, that really were not what they were thinking or expecting of me at all. It was all
hmm
me. So yeah, I get that. Yeah.
And energetically, it's fun because this is another element that comes up this day and age because of this ascension process and people in their spiritual journey. I got this probably 3 times this week. That's funny, in different versions from different clients. Well, I mean, I'm gonna have to go hang out with everybody, and they're pretty 3D. I love that conversation because it was Easter week, so everyone was gonna do family stuff, right? And I'm like, wow, that is just so ridiculous that we're even putting that into like some sort of a category now. Or they're super, super Christian, or they're super this and that, and I'm not, blah, blah. And I'm like, who cares? I mean, who cares? But we have become such a strange society, especially I think this really got prompted because of politics more than anything. You
Mm.
know, I'm a this, you're a that, you're for who, I'm for not. And I mean, relationships have been destroyed. We know that since, this started really big in the COVID year. Your belief system on, you're toxic and I'm not. I mean, that just kind of blew up over the last 5 years. And then at that very same time, of course, we're talking about 3D, 5D. So all of that is such ridiculousness because everybody is still in 3D, whether you think you're ascended or not, because we're still in a 3D existence to some extent. That
Exactly.
said,
Hmm.
how you look at and perceive and experience might be in a 5D, but don't fool yourself. We're still on the same planet for right now.
Oh, I'm bouncy bounce. I'm bouncing. I'm bouncing.
It's just so silly to me. These judgments just crack my ass up. I'm just like, wow, wow, you're really
Well,
worried
and
about.
you know what's fun is like you nailed it. It's staying in that neutral place, but observing.
Yeah.
How fun is that? Because you just watch, and you can see in people, that you're with that they're evolving too. A lot of them. They like
Hmm.
when you really observe, there are people that are just really stuck in the narrative that they are living in what they perceive, but there are others that are really evolving. And I see that a lot of my nieces and nephews when I'm with them. Like
Hmm.
they have a lot less fear about things, I think, than what I had and even my children had at that age. Like
Sure.
really great to watch, so to go into a whole brand new family without knowing them, but being, part of it goes back to loving yourself,
Hmm.
and doing those exercises, right?
Yep.
Like, because if you're comfortable with yourself, why would you change anything about yourself for someone else?
Exactly.
So I that's part of the spiritual growth though, is really getting to that place
Yep.
more.
And
Yeah.
again, that's those three, anchors that we bring up almost every time, as do I in client work. I am safe. I do have worth. I am enough. There is enough. That's the whole premise. Is that I
Mhm.
don't have to show up with some ridiculous story to prove anything. When I have that anchored inside of me, I just am. So I think it's really think of, if you're a listener and you're kind of wondering what role do I play, I just think that's just such a where does that come from? What role do I play? Aren't I just me, you know?
Yeah, well, I have a question. So when you're talking about boundaries, because I know for myself that if I'm not comfortable with myself or I'm insecure about something, whatever attracts to me that reinforces that, I guess, or the people and their reactions to me are part of that.
Yeah.
But when you're setting up a boundary of like talk about that a little bit more because I
Well,
think
remember, like finds like. Let's start there. Energetics find each other. So if I've got a bat signal going out that, I have no worth, I have no worth, I have no worth, I'm going to attract somebody that challenges my worth because they probably are challenged in their worth.
Mhm.
Right? And then I'm mirroring, but I'm not necessarily ever knowing I'm mirroring. We don't get taught we mirror anything in life. And that would be a really great lesson to learn, like I always say in third grade. If I understood the mechanics of energy mirroring and that I'm challenged because I see something in you that I don't like is because it's actually in me,
Mhm.
etc. All of that is sending a bat signal out, or it's sending a frequency out, it's sending a message out, it's sending an algorithm out. So if I'm going to attract, if I've got those troubles, I'm attracting that, right?
Mhm.
If I'm really balanced in my spiritual safe worth and enough, and I have a boundary of I'm just going to hold my space and you can like it or not, and it's not this. I don't
No.
mean that because a lot of people go, you can like it or not, and that's not what I mean. When you do this, you forgot this. And so when I hold that space and that boundary of like it or not, I don't have that algorithm going out. I don't have that frequency bat signal going out to find that other person. Now it can still happen. That person can come up to me and try to do that kind of game playing of mirroring, but your bubble is kind of like a bounce bubble. It's kind of like it's going to spring back on that other person and they're going to have their responsibility more, right?
Well, and I think when you know yourself, you recognize those things in other people more, right?
So I
Yeah.
bounce it back
Yep.
because I'm not going to do that. And instead of, again, living this way, I'm actually finding compassion. Whereas
By the
before,
way, when she's saying living this way, if you're not visually watching, she's giving you the finger. So just I want to
oh,
say
that's
in case you're listening to audio.
oh, that's funny. I never think about that. Yeah. Yeah. So when you're negative, yeah, when I say I don't care, my finger goes up. Thank you. Well, there's a lot of people that say I don't care, and their middle finger goes up in terms of their energetic field
Yeah.
because they do really care. They're still being judged. Thank you for pointing that out. That's funny. But yeah, so it bounces back, and then I find a level of empathy when I have a boundary. So this is really, um, honoring the space. Let's go back to the mother. When she comes here and she feels like, oh my God, I'm going to start to have to feel all the empathing of my daughter. She's really struggling. I want to make it all better for her. She's really in over her head with this baby. I want to do everything. That's empathing again. And when we put up that boundary, I'm going to have an empathetic and compassionate space in there going, she's really struggling. Maybe I'll take the kid for 5 minutes or 10 minutes, but then I'm out because she's going to learn this on the way she wants to, right?
Right.
So again, that doesn't mean I'm out and my finger goes up.
Yeah, right.
It just means I'm out because I get to be out. I have a hair appointment, and I'm honoring my hair appointment. So these are the boundaries that I'm talking about that are really, really important for us to do, whether we're moving back from somewhere or not. That's just what boundaries are.
Right.
So
Right. Oh my gosh, this was a
maintain.
good topic, especially since it's kind of fits in my life right now. It is,
Yeah,
gosh,
yeah,
so
yeah. And again, congratulations, Grandma to be.
thank you.
Yeah, we're both doing it in the fall. It's going to be a
We
big fall.
are. It's so crazy.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
going to be a boom, boom. Okay, well, anything else on it, or we're rounding down?
No, I think we're rounding down. I think that's good.
Okay,
Yeah.
cool. Well, on behalf of Kim and I, thank you so much. We really appreciate you watching. We would really love to have you share this with maybe anybody that it resonates with. Hit the subscribe button, hit the share button, whatever you choose to do. And maybe leave us a comment. It would be fun to hear it. So thanks for your time. Till next Cosmic Cons.
Okay. Goodbye.